This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Show on Teachers Talk Radio with Graham Stanley. Today I'll be looking at language learning using virtual reality and in virtual worlds. For the former, my guest is Maryam Mirshahnasab, an educator originally from Iran but now based in Manchester in the UK.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Sunday Lunch Show, everyone. Before the explosion of interest in artificial intelligence, it looked like virtual reality, virtual worlds, and the metaverse were going to be a major part of the technological landscape, including the world of education. Many educators were already exploring VR and revisiting virtual worlds when Facebook renamed themselves Meta and started investing heavily in the 3D internet, claiming that it was going to be a major part of what we would be doing in the future when it came to the online world. Has all of that disappeared now that AI predominates the technological landscape and has become the technology that teachers feel they need to know more about? Whilst I agree that educators do need to become very familiar with AI, as it is the technology that is having the most influence upon the world, with our learners in our schools, and will surely dramatically disturb and influence the way that we work and all manner of different aspects of our lives. It's already starting to do so. Whilst all of that is true, I don't think we should turn our back on the potential of other technologies to create interesting and useful opportunities for us as teachers and for our learners. So with that in mind, let's look today at two main areas of educational technology: virtual reality and all that is connected to and adjacent to that, and then virtual worlds, which have always promised so much and yet have seemed to fall short of expectations, in my opinion at least. More about that later. But first, though, let's take a look at virtual reality, or VR. As with most things, I thought it would be good to start with definitions and an overview of what the technology is being used for in education, then specifically language learning and teaching. So here we go. I'm sure you've all heard of VR. Perhaps many of you have used it or have seen people using it. And the first image you have when hearing the term is usually one of people wearing those strange goggles, moving about, playing 3D games, etc. But is that what VR is? Or is that all what VR is? Or is it, or can it be something else? And then what about AR, augmented reality? What's that? And how is it connected to VR? Then perhaps not as popular a term, there's MR. And then also you may have heard of XR, so mixed reality and extended reality. So let's take a moment to define what all of these terms mean. The first thing to say, perhaps, is what they all have in common. The word reality connects them all, and they're all ways of experiencing a different view or a different version of reality, which then can be exploited for learning and for teaching in many cases. Now, the differences between virtual reality, VR, augmented reality, AR, mixed reality, MR, and extended reality, XR, lie in how they interact with and modify the real world. The typical definition of VR is that it's a fully immersive experience where users enter a completely digital environment, so they're cut off from the real world. And it usually requires a headset. For example, Oculus Quest is one of them, one of the most popular ones, and often controllers in order to interact with that virtual world. And examples of what it's used for, well, the most typical is virtual reality gaming, but there's also virtual tourism, and then it is also used for training simulations. Now, augmented reality, AR, overlays digital content onto the real world while still allowing interaction with the physical environment. So you don't close yourself off like you do with VR, which provides an alternate version of the real world. AR is also typically experienced through smartphones. A very typical example of AR, which I'm sure everyone has heard about, is Pokemon Go, the game. There are also AR glasses, Microsoft HoloLens, or heads-up displays, often called HUDs, in cars and in other areas. And it's best thought of as providing information about another layer to our own world that is not visible without the apps that show it. So Pokemon Go shows where you can find virtual creatures in real-time locations, real geographic locations. Other AR apps, when used to display things such as virtual graffiti or other markers on real-life geographical places too. Now, when I worked in Uruguay, for instance, we created a Shakespeare Lives exhibition using AR, where people could interact with portraits of William Shakespeare in the entrance to various museums by scanning a QR code, and that would give them more information about Shakespeare's life and play video clips, etc. And the idea behind this was to provide a trail for people to get them to go to visit museums in the city of Montevideo, and at the same time learn something new about Shakespeare. We hoped that it would get people in the city to discover new places, new museums they would then want to visit, and also it would be a different and entertaining way of them engaging with Shakespeare and English literature. Mixed reality, MR, is perhaps more difficult to unpack as a term. It's a step beyond augmented reality because it allows real-time interaction between the digital and physical elements and blends them more seamlessly. More about this later. And extended reality, XR, is the umbrella term that encompasses VR, AR, MR. So XR refers to all immersive technologies that extend reality in some way. In short, VR is interaction with a full digital world, and there's no real world interaction. AR is adding digital elements, overlaying them onto the real world. MR is mixed reality. MR blends real and digital worlds more interactively than it is done with AR. And XR is the broad category covering VR, AR, MR, and other immersive technology. I'll be talking more about these in more detail, and we'll also be hearing from my guest, Mary, about her work in VR after the Teachers Talk radio news.
Hi, secondary school teachers. We're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculums. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
Did you know that every year, half of disadvantaged children who are top attainers at primary school don't go on to achieve top GCSE maths results? At Axiom Maths, we exist to change that. Our fully funded program helps schools nurture young mathematicians through weekly face-to-face maths circles, where pupils tackle challenging and exciting problems outside the national curriculum. With just under £3,000 annual funding, expert training and quality resources, we give schools everything they need to inspire the next generation of mathematical thinkers. Want to make a difference? Visit axiommaths.com today and join over 400 schools delivering maths circles across the UK.
Meet 2025 BET Award winner Kialo EDU, the 100% free tool for thoughtful, inclusive classroom discussion. On Kialo, students contribute instantly and simultaneously to create an interactive map of a discussion, deepening their subject knowledge and enhancing their critical thinking skills. Set tasks, track participation, and provide personalized feedback in just a few clicks. And since it's compatible with all your favourite LMS platforms, it slots seamlessly into your existing workflow. Over 1 million educators and students are already using Kialo to make the world a more thoughtful place. Join them today at kialo-edu.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Teachers' pay's back in the news in Northern Ireland after Belfast Live reports that teachers have rejected a proposed pay deal for a second time. The Northern Ireland Teachers' Council, which represents the teaching unions in negotiations with management, said members were still not prepared to accept the 5.5% uplift offer. Teachers rejected an initial offer in February. A new offer was tabled by management last week and included what was described as an enhanced package of commitments around reducing workload, but it was also rejected. Teachers in Northern Ireland have been taking industrial action short of strike during the dispute. Members of several unions have already voted in favour of strike action if the impasse is not resolved. Full details of the story can be found online. In Sunderland, the city's university has had its new £10 million campus officially opened by the Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson. Phillipson is also the City of Sunderland's MP. The new facility is located at the university's London site, close to Canary Wharf, and is set to train the business leaders, financiers and NHS workforce of the future. The report in the Sunderland Echo details comments from Ms Phillipson about the hugely positive impact the University of Sunderland has had on the region, and that it was fantastic to see the university expanding outside the North East. Among the academic courses on offer, the new Harbour Exchange campus aims to provide qualifications and opportunities to hundreds of nurses over the next 5 years. Meanwhile, online news and comment site The Tab features research by The Telegraph, which suggests that there are more people with depression and anxiety in places with lots of students. According to the online article, 4 cities with Russell Group universities stood out as having high numbers of people seeking support for mental health. Experts have suggested a number of reasons for university students experiencing poor mental health, including the rise of social media, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the cost of living crisis and financial worries. The cities included Leeds, Bristol, Liverpool and Nottingham. Deadline News Agency also explores this issue, but focuses on Edinburgh University's decision to bring alpacas onto campus in an effort to tackle anxiety. The university holds regular pause against stress sessions where dogs visit students, and alpacas have also returned. The animals first appeared in 2022 and have returned to support students as they approach their final exam period. Sky News covers new evidence from the Office of the Children's Commissioner for England, which suggests that children who are repeatedly uprooted from their homes go on to achieve fewer GCSEs. The article says that, for the first time, research proves the negative impact housing insecurity has on educational attainment. Each additional address move was linked to a fall in achievement of the accepted standard of 5 GCSE passes, including English and Maths, at grade 4. Only half of the children who moved 3 times between reception and year 11 went on to achieve the 5, compared to 65% for those with the home address in the same period. This fell to 1 in 10 amongst those who moved 10 times throughout their education. The report goes on to cover the further impact on those moving between a series of temporary accommodation and the links with child poverty and the increasing gap between disadvantaged children and their non-disadvantaged peers. Full details can be found on the Sky News website. Finally, the Mail Online covers the story of parents who sold their family home and quit their jobs to travel the world with their 3 children. The article describes the family of 5 as modern-day nomads who have travelled to Thailand, China, Malaysia and Dubai whilst homeschooling their children. The parents believe their children are better off travelling the world than attending traditional schools, as the parents have no faith in the UK education system. But they do say that the children follow the national curriculum. When asked about their children missing out on friendships, both parents said they weren't concerned as the benefits outweighed the risks. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's take a deeper dive into these technologies, starting with virtual reality, VR. So apart from the VR headsets that many now have for gaming at home, and some, including my guest, use for education, VR has started appearing in all sorts of places. You may have noticed them appearing in places where you live for entertainment. So I know a few in London that use VR. One I visited involved walking around a large space in Stratford wearing goggles and a backpack. As I walked around, I was given a guided tour of the Great Pyramid of Giza and surrounding area in Egypt. It was fascinating, educational, fun, and much more immersive and enlightening than watching any 2D TV documentary, for example. Perhaps the closest you can get to actually going there yourself, but also complementary to that because the experience took me inside the pyramid and also above it and also back into the past to show me aspects that you can't get either by visiting the place itself or by watching a documentary about it. So this is where I think truly VR has a place in education. It was incredible, but it's quite expensive to set up this type of space and create that type of experience. It's beyond the scope of anything a teacher, an individual teacher could do, or even a school could do. I do recommend, however, that you visit if you are near one of these spaces, especially if they're educational and not just entertaining, or any other VR experience like it, and encourage your students to do so too. It is a really interesting way of getting them interested in, for example, with the Egyptian experience in history. So I mentioned earlier that VR is when you step into a fully digital alternate world with no real world interaction. Now, there's a crossover here with virtual worlds, but I want to keep that separate and talk about those later. First, though, do you need a headset to experience VR? What do you think? Well, you don't always need a headset for VR, but headsets provide the most immersive experience. There are, however, other ways to experience VR, and I am going to talk a little bit about that. They do come with limitations, though. So other ways to experience virtual environments without a headset include 360-degree videos and VR tours. Now, you can find these on platforms such as YouTube VR and Google Earth VR. And these 360-degree videos let you explore an immersive environment, 360-degree content on a regular screen, but you can kind of move the cursor and spin around and see the whole of a room or the whole of a landscape, for example. You can drag the view with a mouse or use your phone's gyroscope to look around. And these are quite interesting to explore when it comes to looking at education, because you can actually overlay things. You can mark them up with text or links to videos, etc. And you can create something quite interesting out of it. It's beyond what I'm going to be talking about today to give you ideas of how to do that. But if you search for them, if this is something you think you would be interested in, then you'll definitely find some examples. And you can do all sorts of things. I've seen escape room games being done using 360-degree videos that are very engaging and interesting, especially when it comes to online learning. Now, VR on a PC or mobile screen, some VR experiences can be done in this way, and interaction can be through a browser without a headset. There are things like Mozilla Hub's 3D museum tours or virtual real estate walkthroughs that are examples of this. So again, things that will allow you to walk through from the comfort of your computer screen a particular 3D environment, a house, a museum, etc., can be very interesting. And one of the places that I've been able to enjoy with this has been a museum in Mexico City that is closed to the public, the Leonora Carrington Museum, and it's been closed to the public for a long time. It's a house and studio, but despite it being very close to where I live, I haven't been able to visit apart from just looking at it from outside. But I can see inside through a wonderful 3D virtual tour, which also focuses upon certain objects and gives information and links to other aspects of Leonora Carrington's life and work through that. And that's fascinating. So that allows you to explore using a type of VR, which doesn't require a headset. And then there's something a bit interesting that I haven't seen myself, but I have read about it and would love the opportunity to see it, is this idea of cave systems. Now, these are projection-based VR. They're used in research and industrial training. They're very expensive, so they're not very practical for most of us, but I think they're interesting to know about. CAVE is an acronym, Cave Automatic Virtual Environment, and this is when VR is projected onto surrounding walls. And a cave automatic virtual environment, it's an immersive virtual reality environment where projectors are directed to between 3 and 6 of the walls of a room-sized cube. And the name is also a reference, of course, to the cave in Plato's Republic, in which a philosopher contemplates perception, reality, and illusion. The floor can be a downward projection screen, a bottom projected screen, or a flat panel display, and the projection systems are very high resolution due to the near distance viewing, which requires very small pixel sizes to retain the illusion of reality. This is perhaps the most sort of interesting high definition version of VR. And although the goggles aren't necessary, users do wear 3D glasses inside the cave to be able to see the 3D graphics generated by the cave. And people using the cave can see objects apparently floating in the air and walk around them and get a proper view of what they would look like in reality, etc. So it sounds really interesting, but I've not really had the opportunity to explore it, and I certainly haven't seen it in real life, if I can use that term. So when do you need a headset? So if you want full immersion, 6 degrees of freedom, as it's called, movement and hand tracking, then you do need a headset like Meta Quest, PlayStation VR, HTC Vive, or Vive, or others. You definitely need those. And while you can experience VR without a headset, it won't be as immersive as with one. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to try any of these out. I have. I think the downside of them is after a maximum of about 20 minutes, I can only stand about 20 minutes and then my head starts to hurt and I need to take it off. It is also quite difficult because you can feel quite dizzy depending on the actual game or experience that you have. So I think I would only recommend it for short bursts of 10-15 minutes maximum, because otherwise it can feel a little bit disorienting. But anyway, Virtual reality is revolutioning education, or some people think it is, by making learning more immersive, interactive and engaging. It can allow students to experience subjects firsthand rather than just reading about them or watching them on a screen. This is definitely where there is a potential, but I don't think, my own experience of it, I don't think the potential has been realized, and I don't think it will be until the headsets become less clunky, less expensive, and less uncomfortable, I think. Now, key uses of VR in education include virtual field trips. You can explore historical sites. Space is a great one. Egypt, as I said before, or underwater ecosystems without leaving the classroom or without leaving your own room or computer screen. Now, examples are Google Expeditions, National Geographic VR. So you can explore those, search for those and explore what you can see if you wouldn't know more. There's also medical and science training. Medical students, and this is where I think it's very interesting, can practice surgeries in VR simulations without risks, of course. And chemistry and physics labs can be done safely in VR too. There's all sorts of examples related to surgical training in virtual science labs, which I think is an interesting use of VR. STEM and engineering learning is another area of education where VR is being used. Now, students can build and test prototypes in 3D spaces. Physics concepts like gravity and motion can be demonstrated interactively. This sounds like a really interesting way of people experiencing those, which wouldn't be possible or would be too expensive to be able to do otherwise. So space for engineering and physics simulations are examples of that. There's also soft skills and workplace training, which use VR. VR can help develop communication, leadership, and decision-making skills in certain simulations. So it's used in corporate training for customer service and public speaking. It can give an experience of a lecture theatre full of people, for example, where someone can actually try out their public speaking skills without actually being in front of people to practice. So virtual speech, public speaking, and business training is something that is being used and is an example of a good use of VR, I think. When it comes to language learning, VR provides real-life conversational practice with AI-driven avatars. And an example of this is Mondly VR for language immersion. I'll talk a little bit more about language learning and teaching in a little bit. Then there's history and cultural learning. As I mentioned before, the experience of Egypt that I had was fascinating and very memorable. You can also experience other historical events as if you were there. So walking through ancient Rome is one, for example. And there are historical reenactments that use VR, which are worth exploring if that is an area of interest. Special education and inclusivity is an area where VR is being used. So students with disabilities can be provided customized learning experience through VR headsets, which they would otherwise not be able to have. An example is VR for autism therapy, which there's so much I'm going to be talking about here that I don't really know about, but they're worth exploring, I think. And this is one of them. Why does VR work in education? Well, it can boost engagement. It can make learning more fun and interactive. It can enhance memory retention. I've always thought that you need to give our students a memorable experience for it to be very valuable, for it to be powerful for learning. And learning by doing is often more effective. And this is definitely an example of where you can actually employ that. It can also provide a safe environment, so there are no real world risks apart from bumping into walls. And I once actually, during a game, I punched a wall in my house, which was quite painful. So you have to be very careful when you set things up about the space that you use. It can also increase accessibility, and students can learn beyond classroom limitations. So VR is shaping the future of education by making learning experiences more immersive, accessible, and effective. Now, how does it work when it comes to language learning, and why is it effective? Now, there are many who think that VR is transforming or has the potential to transform language learning, and we'll be speaking to one of those, my guest Mary, in a very short while. And it does this by creating immersive environments where learners can practice speaking, listening, and interacting in real-world scenarios. Instead of memorizing, for example, vocabulary from a textbook, students can experience conversations or interact with objects that represent the vocabulary as if they were in a particular country or situation, for example. These immersive environments, well, learners can practice in these realistic settings like ordering food in a French cafe or asking for directions in Tokyo. They can have conversational practice with AI avatars. And this is where AI interacts with virtual reality to provide an interesting experience. And the virtual characters in these virtual reality worlds respond dynamically, allowing for real-life dialogue practice without fear of judgment. I've not tried it myself, but definitely it sounds like something worth looking at. Then, of course, there's gamification and engagement. VR apps make learning fun and interactive, and especially if they have challenges, rewards, and real-world missions. Pronunciation and listening improvement can be another aspect, a benefit of using this type of VR. And many of the VR platforms use speech recognition to correct pronunciation, provide instant feedback. Not something I've tried out myself, but it's definitely available. So I don't know how effective it is, but there is that aspect to this type of VR language learning worlds. Context-based learning, learners can see objects, signs, and cultural cues that reinforce meaning and make vocabulary easy to remember. And what about popular VR language learning apps? Well, one I mentioned before, Mondelez VR, is the most well-known of the VR language apps. It can offer interactive conversations in multiple languages and uses speech recognition to provide pronunciation feedback. Immerse VR is another one, social VR platform where learners can join virtual classrooms with live teachers and students. And this simulates real-world experience like traveling, business meetings, or casual conversations. And there's a crossover here to virtual worlds, which I will talk about later. Language VR games. There are games that where you can use VR to learn a language. Some apps that are available use story-based learning, where users complete missions by speaking in the target language. That sounds quite an interesting way of students learning more language. An example is Allspace VR and VR Chat. That is not language specific, but it's great for practicing with others. And Google Expeditions and Engage VR. These are virtual field trips where you can explore different countries and hear people speaking in context. And this could be worth exploring if this is an area which you're particularly interested in. Why does VR work for language learning? Well, there's the real world context. So learning in relevant settings, which can always improve retention. That's why traveling to another country is always one of the best ways of actually learning particular language. If that's not possible, well, this is an option. It can reduce anxiety. There's no pressure from real people to speak. So you can build confidence by using this type of app. It can encourage active learning, speaking, listening, and interacting makes it more effective. And then you have the cultural aspect. So learners can absorb customs, accents, and get non-verbal cues and start seeing a bit about the culture through experiencing it in VR. Final thoughts about virtual reality. Well, it can make language learning more engaging, effective, and fun by allowing the learners to kind of live the language instead of just studying it. And it can provide a real world experience without travel costs. Now, there are downsides, which I won't go into a lot, but obviously it can be very expensive. Can you really afford, if you're doing this with more than just for yourself, to buy headsets for students. There are ways of doing this, which Mary will talk about, but I think there are kind of other downsides as well. If you're studying on your own and you want to practice, well, VR, I think, is a really interesting way of doing that. Or if you're in a group, but you're geographically dispersed, that's another way. I'm not so sure about having a group of students together in the same classroom and wearing VR headsets. That I'm not sure is worth doing. But hey, there are all manner of different ways that teachers and learners are using these tools that I don't know about, that I haven't seen, so who knows. So I'm going to now introduce Maryam to the show, and we will be talking about her experience and her research with virtual reality for language learning and teaching. Maryam has over 14 years of experience in English language teaching, both online and face-to-face. She's got a master's degree in linguistics from Shahid Behesi University, a high-ranking university in Iran, and a master's in TESOL with a focus on technology from the University of Manchester, as well as a CELTA from International House in London. For her dissertation, Mary focused on the use of virtual reality and its impact on the effective and cognitive engagement of students. And we'll be discussing the results of this research, and she will be discussing the results of this research at the upcoming IATEFL conference in Edinburgh in April, so very soon. Mary is an expert in designing learning materials for students from diverse cultural backgrounds, and she's committed to blending cultures, technology, and education to enhance learning experiences. Recently, she's founded Be Reality, BR, not VR, an initiative focused on integrating advanced technologies to enrich educational outcomes and bridge cultural divides.
Hi secondary school teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculums. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
Did you know that every year, half of disadvantaged children who are top attainers at primary school don't go on to achieve top GCSE maths results? At Axiom Maths, we exist to change that. Our fully funded program helps schools nurture young mathematicians through weekly face-to-face maths circles, where pupils tackle challenging and exciting problems outside the national curriculum. With just under £3,000 annual funding, expert training and quality resources, we give schools everything they need to inspire the next generation of mathematical thinkers. Want to make a difference? Visit axiommaths.com today and join over 400 schools delivering maths circles across the UK.
Meet 2025 BET Award winner Kialo EDU, the 100% free tool for thoughtful, inclusive classroom discussion. On Kialo, students contribute instantly and simultaneously to create an interactive map of a discussion, deepening their subject knowledge and enhancing their critical thinking skills. Set tasks, track participation, and provide personalized feedback in just a few clicks. And since it's compatible with all your favorite LMS platforms, it slots seamlessly into your existing workflow. Over 1 million educators and students are already using Kialo to make the world a more thoughtful place. Join them today at kialo-edu.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
So, welcome back, everyone. I'm very happy to have with me Mary from Iran originally. Mary, could you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us how you became involved in education?
Hello, Graham, and thank you for having me here today. I'm truly delighted to have the opportunity to join you and all the listeners. It's a privilege to be able to share my journey as an educator, particularly how I've integrated technology into teaching to make a meaningful impact. Well, I'm Maryam, but you can call me Mary, the short form Mary. It's also my nickname. I've been calling Manchester home since 2022, though I originally hail from Iran, as you mentioned. And well, my journey into teaching, it truly began during my undergrad days. I was studying English language translation and simultaneously worked as a translator at Mashhad News University. But, I quickly realized that my true calling was teaching, especially since I frequently found myself helping my classmates. And it wasn't long before even my professors started asking me for assistance. And that's when it really clicked for me, this undeniable passion for education. I mean, the classroom interaction seems magical to me, the way just time flies and each class brings something new and exciting.
Fantastic. And so, could you tell us a little bit more about your journey from working as a teacher in Iran to being at Manchester University in the UK? That sounds like an interesting route that you've taken.
Yeah, sure. Well, I began my first teaching role when I was 21, starting with EFL. And well, after earning my master's in linguistics in 2015, I specialized in IELTS preparation, helping hundreds of students achieve their desired scores. And I continued teaching IELTS at a well-known English institute in my city until I relocated to the UK in September 2022. Which marked a significant turn in my life. But my teaching journey can be divided into three phases. Before 2018, from 2018 to 2022, and from 2022 to now. Let me explain so it's not too confusing. Up until 2018, I was teaching much like any other teacher using traditional textbooks and physical classrooms, but things changed dramatically in 2018 when I launched my own online school. This shift really transformed my career as an English teacher. Let me share a bit more about my interest in using technology to enhance education, or better said, to help people. Believe it or not, as a high school student, I used our phone, I mean, our home phone, to teach. Yeah, to assist a classmate who couldn't attend school because of her situation. So I thought her actually using just a simple phone. And this was my first introduction to what would become a long-standing commitment now to integrating technology in education. I was inspired by how we could be physically apart, actually, yet still engage in learning and teaching rather than just using physical classroom, I mean, being in a physical classroom in person. And in university, I explore actually this opportunity more, and I use WeChat, which was trendy back then in Iran. It's not anymore. I use WeChat to deliver vocabulary lessons, which was actually quite innovative at the time. But right now, when I think about it, it's like using Morse code in the age of instant messaging. Yeah, but no, it was really trendy that time. And actually, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, I was already well prepared with my online platform because I launched my own school in 2018, as I mentioned. It was actually a small setup, and I used some straightforward platform like Adobe Connect, if I am not wrong. It was Adobe Connect. However, I intentionally called it school to foster a sense of belonging for my student. And To be honest, it's funny a bit because my colleagues had always been a bit skeptical about my online efforts, thinking they were just a waste of time. I mean, before COVID-19, yeah, they were like, okay, you have your own physical classroom, so what's the point in just having this online school and things? But I had a feeling that I was onto something important for the future. And guess what? Yeah, that really paid off during the lockdowns. I mean, it was,
So
yeah.
you were one of the people who actually you benefited from having started teaching online, what, a year before the lockdown, I suppose.
Yeah, honestly, if I hadn't started teaching online with such confidence a year before COVID, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to maintain my income right when lockdown started. Yeah, like so many teachers who lost their jobs and were left wondering what to do now. Just luckily, I was able to lend a hand to some colleagues even. And yeah, that's it because I've got my platform already there, which was really helpful there. So yeah, and now UK, you know what, fueled by a passion to merge cutting edge technology with traditional teaching method, I decided to pursue a second master because my first master was in linguistics, and then I pursued my second master's in TESOL at the University of Manchester with a technology focus actually. But thanks to achieving a scholarship, yeah. And again, it was during the lockdown, that I had the opportunity to apply for this prestigious and competitive scholarship. Well, I was honored to be selected. So starting in 2022, the third phase of my teaching career began. Yeah, and marking a new chapter where technology became even more integral to my educational approach.
Fantastic. And I believe what you've been involved in recently is a project which uses virtual reality, VR, in the teaching and learning of English. How did you become interested in VR?
Well, when I arrived in the UK, I was keen to dive deeper into educational technology. I was already familiar with VR, but mostly just playing games now and then with my husband and family members in our free time. I mean, it was not like I didn't imagine it would become part of my professional project later. But it was during a class with my dear teacher Felix that I was introduced to Karen Sylvester. She greatly inspired me with her passionate work in VR. I was fortunate to meet this inspiring individual who generously shared her VR equipment, allowing me to explore its educational benefits firsthand. And I would like to thank her using this platform. Yeah, of course, if it wasn't because of her, I wouldn't have been able to complete such an amazing project. Yeah, so
Can I stop you there just for the benefit of anyone listening, because VR means lots of different things to different people. Virtual reality can mean using the headsets that people use to kind of experience an immersive environment, or it can actually just be looking on a usual desktop and being in a 3D virtual world. Which of the two are you most interested in?
Yeah, there are some different facilities like VR with headset, and then we've got AR. As you mentioned, we don't need the headset. It's just some platform and computer or somewhere else that you can use. But nowadays we use the term XR to include all of them. I mean VR, AR, even some other thing. Mine was with VR with glasses. It was exactly with those glasses. It was not AR. Yeah, it was VR with glasses. Yeah.
And using the glasses or goggles maybe for virtual reality, what benefits does that give the person who is using them?
Well, the thing is, if I want to talk about the outcome of my project, it was really promising because when I started this project, I went to NCG New College group in Manchester, and I taught 12 students, 12 IELTS students. It was like it was not something like Mike IELTS test, but it was more of a preparation class. And the research outcome shows the impact on effective and cognitive engagement among students, and it shows that it can improve their schema to the point that they're able to use their background knowledge. It raises their noticing level and things like this. Yeah, the format that I used was actually using a virtual shopping center where students could interact with objects, and they grab things, items, objects, and then pop up boxes would appear, and helping them practice vocabulary and grammar relevant to the setting. And this immediate application in a shopping context was designed to enhance their practical use of language. And after the VR session, students would remove their headsets, and we would conduct a mock exam to assess how effectively they could apply what they learned in a more conventional test setting. And yeah, the results were promising, as I mentioned. Yeah, they could immediately apply the vocabulary, grammar, things, talking about a memorable shopping experience and things like this. Those questions related to part 2 of IELTS test, IELTS speaking.
Right. And so you have used this supermarket, this shopping scenario as a kind of role play. Is that right?
Yeah, it was not just role play. It was some kind of context, let's say, because it could be something else. It could be something like an airport, a cafe. But I'm going to explain about my new project, then I will explain this. Yeah, it could be a different context. But yeah.
And so walk us through what you actually did. How many students were there, and were they physically in your classroom and then they put on the headsets?
Yeah, so for the research, as I mentioned, we went to NCG, New College Group in Manchester. For the research, there were 12 students, and we asked them to put on the glasses, the VR glasses, and there was a train for them how to use, because the thing is they need to know how to use VR. It's something, but another thing is to teach them a real lesson. So it was something different, but it was not that difficult. It was just 10 to 15 minutes. The training, and we use Immerse, a platform which fortunately provided us with necessary training and things like this for the student. And yeah, they wore the glasses, and then we started the project. They forgot that they are in the classroom even. It was really like a game for them. Especially what fascinated me the most was those Chinese students who were proved to be shy in class, but it was like they forgot that it's a real classroom. It was like for them that they're just playing games, and they were able to talk and to to tell whatever they want to say. Yeah.
So you have the 12 students, they each have a headset, they've put on the headsets. What happens next?
Well, after that, I designed a course for them using virtual reality. So I designed the course in a way for students to notice some vocabulary. Some of them was like in a form of pop-up boxes for them to just click on them, but some of them was just there for them to notice. And
so what kind of when you say pop-up box, did it
for example,
popped up and it was text, or was it a picture of something, or?
Yeah, for example, if they grab this phone or something like glasses or a thing like this, it pop up with the name of the vocabulary, and but it was something like those kind of vocabulary less common lexes that students need to use in IELTS exam. Yeah, so the pop up was just vocabulary, but there were also some board around the environment, around the immersive environment for them to notice some structure. Let's say they wanted to go and order espresso. It was like, I would like this, I would like that. So the structure, the chunk of grammar was already there for them to use as a kind of pop-up boxes. We call, yeah. So we design the course for them there.
Okay, so they're walking, 12 of them walking around a supermarket, clicking on things. Did you have tasks that went with this, or was it just they were exploring and seeing the names of the vocabulary?
Well, the aim of my study at that time was just improving vocabulary and grammar. So yeah, I intentionally put something for them to grab something that I want them to know the meaning of the words and also the grammar. So it was not something like a speaking task. It was just for them to go around, have the chance to see as if they're in the real world, to move around and then be familiar with some kind of vocabulary. And after that, when they removed the headsets, they started talking about their experience. And then, yeah, the task was started actually when they removed the headset, the real headset.
Right, so they could talk after they'd been in the virtual world, in the virtual reality, they could then talk about what they did and how they felt
Yeah.
about it and stuff.
Yeah. So exactly after they finish experiencing moving around, yeah, they were able to talk. But I'm going to expand it. So it was not. It was
Sure.
just It was just the start for me. The start of this project. Right now, I'm working on something else. So if you'd like to know about it, I'm
Yeah,
eager to explain.
please.
Because when I finished my study, I had the chance to go to Bolton College, and I was ESOL lecturer there. And you know what? Teaching ESOL is different. It is something really different. It's not like being a teacher for IELTS or even ESL, because you're working with some students, such as asylum seekers, and with some challenging background. And this role has been incredibly enlightening for me, how to help them in the process of acculturation. And again, I started thinking about VR, and I started thinking about using technology. So, motivated by this need, I began exploring this technological solution. And for the practical setting, I'm using a VR platform right now. It's my own VR platform, and I'm excited to tell that right now we are working with a VR developer to develop something like a city. The character that I've chosen is a bee, and this bee is a migrant in a bee city, trying to integrate into the culture and everything, using these headsets, going around, flying, learn vocabulary, and at the same time try to practice culture. So yeah, this is my project at hand, and I want to try with more students, with those students with migrant background this time.
So you said the character that the student would adopt is a bee.
Yeah, they're going to work with a bee. It's for me, it's
Why
Manchester bee.
why a bee?
Well, so the name of my first platform was Lingobi. And Lingobi was from language, globe, and for me, it was Manchester bee. But it also represents hard work and things like this. So now it's bee. I have this connection with the bee myself, but also it's a character that I wrote. I like it to be some kind of fictional for students, because I'm also into writing. I don't call myself a writer, but I write every now and then, and it's my character for helping students forget the adulthood, adults word, and just be that bee. And with the help of that bee, try to immerse themselves in virtual reality and practice English.
Is the city based on a real English city?
Yeah, so the name of the city, I've chosen the name of the city, and it will be Buzz City for the sound of B, with a character named Bella. Bella is a migrant herself, and is trying to learn and practice both culture and language, because of the experience I had with those ESOL students, and I saw their problems, especially in the process of acculturation. I think I can help them. It's my hunch. I'm not sure it's something like another research for me. I can help them using VR, but I'm in the very first stages of this initiative. And the thing is, I'm the I'm the sole financial provider. So if I only have the chance to attract more collaboration and things like this, I might be able to see the real result. Yeah,
So
that's it.
what do you have in mind for this then? You would expect to go to a group of students in a classroom and they would put on the headsets and they would then be in the virtual reality city. What would they do? Or
It's actually a good question, because this time it's not designed in a way to be for the real classroom. This time it's online, and I'm using my online school, my online platform. That way, come back to the first question you asked, it could be both AR and VR this time, which means that student can just go around the city using their phone without the headset, or choose to have the headset, depending on the kind of facility they've got, because it is still expensive for most people to purchase a real headset. So yeah, they have the option to choose VR or AR, but go around the city based on the kind of facility they've got. But this time it's online, and I'm using my own website. So I'm in the process of building the actual city, which is an online city. And I'm so excited about it, because that way it's a global city for more students to join and practice English, not just from Manchester or let's say from Iran, but from other parts of the world. And I'm hopeful for the future to attract more students to be able to provide this facility for those with, let's say, less privileged students from those area of the world. Yeah, this is my ultimate goal, if I can just achieve.
and so I still don't understand what the students would do when they're in the city.
Yeah, in the city, the thing is, I'm going to divide the city into different scenarios, like airport, train station, hotel, cafe, and they have the option to choose their level of English based on the placement test that they know. For example, there are A2 students or B1 students. So based on that, those pop-up boxes will be different for them, defining from the first that they enter the city. And they can go to the hotel and speak with reception and then ask for check-in or check-out. At the same time, they can go to a cafe, train station. So different conversation that we need or learner needs for a real world, like bank, or different location in a real city. Yeah, so imagine that a migrant arrive in the UK in Manchester and want to go to Barclays Bank and then open one account. So it's as if for them that they're in the real situation with the help of that bee. That bee is going to make mistakes, and it's not ashamed of the mistake, and they're going to learn vocabulary to talk with that bee. That bee is their partner, their speaking partner. It could be receptionist, it could be the assistant in a bank. Yeah, different location in the real city. I call
And
it.
so you,
Sorry.
so when they go, for example, to the bank, there is a non-playing character, I guess.
The bee, yeah, the bee will come and help them to get some facility that's related to bank, from
But
withdrawing
they
money.
would
Or
talk to a character, would they?
yes,
And
yes,
and the bee
yeah.
would be something that would help them. with
Yeah,
what they need.
exactly. And the bee is going to be angry with some kind of mispronunciation, and they cannot complete the task if they cannot use the correct vocabulary. So yeah, there are different things for them to practice. To be able to open accounts, they need to know the right vocabulary, and they need to use the right pronunciation with that bee.
And how do they get that vocabulary and the language that
Before
they need?
for each location, I'm going to design a course before each location, and to provide, inspired by my project, by my previous project, I'm going to provide some notice board for them. As I mentioned, based on their level, they can use different vocabulary or chunk of grammar before each location, before entering each location, and then practice them as soon as they feel confident enough to enter the location. They can enter the location using the right vocabulary and chunk of grammar, and then practice in a real environment. And the thing is, I'm thinking the problem for most adult students, based on my experience, is they're ashamed of making mistakes in the real world, especially for migrants. So that way, I'm going to help them to be in a real environment, which is not that real. It's virtual, but they forget. They're going to forget that it's virtual. They think that it's the real world. Yeah.
And so the target audience are students who are not yet in the UK, but who are coming to the UK to live or to study.
Both
Is that it?
actually, both actually. But yeah, my target audience will be migrants, but also those people who are in the process of relocating to another parts of the world rather than their own country. Yeah, so it's both. It's not just migrants.
When you say another part of the world, I think it sounds like it'd be quite culturally specific. Are you aiming it to people who are looking at the UK in particular, or is it a kind of generic city?
Although it's inspired by Manchester Bee and with my connection to Manchester, but no, it's not just about Manchester. It's for global migrants, because the thing is, I think as language educators, we need to be actually aware of these challenges more so now than ever, given the high rates of migration we are witnessing in every part of the world. Being a migrant myself, I deeply understand this struggle, and I'm committed to making a significant impact through this project. So no, it's not just for Manchester, although, as I mentioned, it's inspired by Manchester Bee. Yeah.
But it is specific to the UK, is it? Because there's a lot of cultural elements to
Yes.
when you're talking about
Yeah.
migrants
I would
to
say yeah.
a
Yeah.
particular country.
But I'm hopeful that I can just extend the project later. But for now, yes, somehow it's the most locations are inside the UK, even the name of bank, as I mentioned. Yeah. But I'm hoping to be able to extend the scale of my project. I'm not sure how feasible it is, but yeah, depending on a kind of financial aid that I can receive for the project. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it do you think that VR gives students that they can't get elsewhere, like just attending a class and role playing these scenarios with a teacher, for example? What benefits does VR give those students that they can't get if they do it in the other way, or even an online class?
The thing is, with online class, things are different. But talking about VR, the advantage that I wanted to mention here is the immersive environment that help learners forget that there they are. And that way they're able to fully express themselves to their full potential. Because, as I mentioned, mostly for adult learners, the problem is being ashamed of making mistakes, which is totally fine. It's a natural part of learning languages, but they're ashamed to talk because of this. Also, in the process of acculturation, they don't have the chance to practice culture in a real classroom. They can, of course. I mean, they can, of course. Teachers are able to add some task or even something to help them go through the integration of this process, but not to the point that virtual reality as a virtual world, and in this case, particularly my virtual city, can immerse students. And they feel, I myself, when I wear the glasses, or even when I play VR, let's say AR without glasses, for a second, I just forget where I am. I'm not sure, is it the real world, or am I that be myself, what I'm doing in that moment. So this is the magic of VR that I'm hopeful to be able to fully use in this project, which is really innovative. I don't know how it goes, but yeah, I'm hopeful for the future of that.
There are lots of different existing platforms. There are virtual worlds that you can use. One of the oldest is Second Life, for example. Why did you decide to build your own platform?
Yeah, of course, there are other platforms. Among all the platform that I know, I can also name Immerse. I myself use Immerse platform for my project. But the thing is, I'm going to particularly drawing on Barry's acculturation model, which outlines various responses to new cultures, including assimilation, separation, integration, marginalization for newcomers. And I've chosen to focus particularly on fostering integration. So this approach encourages students to appreciate both their new and original cultures, which is crucial for the personal and social development. So it's not just teaching English, it's not just language, it's also teaching and practicing culture. This is the differences. Yeah.
Why was it that you decided that you needed something completely different to those sort of platforms that already exist?
Because I'm going to use my own character as a teacher. First of all, it's my personal interest. It is my personal interest. It is as if I can see the results of my theoretical research now can be applied in a real platform. And also the character, the Bella character, as I mentioned, is a migrant. I myself, I am migrant, so I can resonate with Bella. And after that, inspired by the role of ESOL lecturer with those students, seeing their difficulties, things like this, I am hopeful to help those kind of students. So it's my personal interest. Also, it's just addressing the problem of ESOL learners, and in this crazy world of migration, this high rate of migration, to be helpful for a better society, at least where I live, and helping the world as well. Yeah.
And what else do you like about virtual reality?
About virtual reality, I've always considered myself a lifelong learner, so I can learn, I can grow, and in today's world, I'm not going to say that AI and VR is going to take the job of teachers, but I can say that it's going to take the job of those teachers who are not eager to use technology. So, as a teacher myself, I want to be up to date with cutting edge technology, and also try to learn constantly.
Yes, and speaking of AI, do you think that the emergence of AI, for example, has taken sort of the spotlight away from things like VR? A lot of people were saying that this was going to be the 3D internet, it'll be the future of the internet. We'll all go into 3D worlds, and that's the way we'll interact on the internet. And then about a year or so ago, with the emergence of AI, a lot of the interest seems to have switched, and it doesn't seem to be the case that VR is going to be the mainstream of the internet. What do you think about that?
Well, the thing is, yeah, you're right. But the thing is, we can combine both AI and VR right now to get the most out of it. So personally, I've embraced this change. I started using ChatGPT to plan even some of the courses for this VR platform. So, I'm going to use ChatGPT and other AI facility for giving feedback in the VR platform. So the thing is, I think the answer is to combine how to combine AI and VR in a way that VR can be still attractive. Otherwise, yeah, without AI, I would say it's not possible anymore. That's that kind of attraction that we witnessed fast. Yeah. So we need to use AI. We need to integrate both.
And what you're working on is a platform that would be self-access. It wouldn't involve a teacher. Is that right? The student would just go in with the bee and there would be interaction with non-playing characters.
Yes, but I'm not going to introduce it as a kind of self-study for a student. It's a kind of facility for a student to enjoy after or before their class. It could be something like, for example, after the class, I usually ask my student to go and listen to a podcast or go and read some kind of reader grade for yourself. So it could be a kind of facility for them, up to date, and also, I mean, using this cutting edge technology for them to be attractive enough to go and have a go. Yeah, so it is something that they can use while they're using the actual classroom, whether it's online classroom or physical classroom. This platform is something else. It is not just the whole idea of learning and teaching English through this platform. It's not what I'm thinking, at least at this phase. Maybe in future, but not at this phase. At this phase, it's something to be there to help them practice more. Something like additional studies, yeah, helping aid. Something like helping aid, yeah. For them to consolidate, it's better to say to consolidate their learning. If if today's session is how to purchase things or shopping mall, then as a kind of consolidation, they have the chance to go and use that platform. This is how I think, yeah, that I want to approach.
So in the way that someone might use a language learning app to supplement the learning of a language.
Exactly. Yeah. It's supplementary. It's not just the main course for them. Couldn't be at this phase, at least at this phase. Yeah.
Okay. I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and I wish you all the best with your project.
Yeah, that was a great conversation, Graham. Thank you again for having me. Yeah, thank you so much. I had a great time discussing these topics with you.
Hi, secondary school teachers. We're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculums. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
Did you know that every year, half of disadvantaged children who are top attainers at primary school don't go on to achieve top GCSE maths results? At Axiom Maths, we exist to change that. Our fully funded program helps schools nurture young mathematicians through weekly face-to-face maths circles, where pupils tackle challenging and exciting problems outside the national curriculum. With just under £3,000 annual funding, expert training and quality resources, we give schools everything they need to inspire the next generation of mathematical thinkers. Want to make a difference? Visit axiommaths.com today and join over 400 schools delivering math circles across the UK.
Meet 2025 BET Award winner Kialo EDU, the 100% free tool for thoughtful, inclusive classroom discussion. On Kialo, students contribute instantly and simultaneously to create an interactive map of a discussion, deepening their subject knowledge and enhancing their critical thinking skills. Set tasks, track participation, and provide personalized feedback in just a few clicks. And since it's compatible with all your favorite LMS platforms, it slots seamlessly into your existing workflow. Over 1 million educators and students are already using Kialo to make the world a more thoughtful place. Join them today at kialo-edu.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Thanks very much to Mary for speaking about her work and research with students and VR. Now I'd like to take a look at AR, augmented reality, in more detail, and in particular, how is AR being used in education? For some, augmented reality is transforming education, as AR can enhance learning, as I said before, by overlaying interactive digital content onto the real world. So this has the potential of making education more engaging, visual, and hands-on. Now, unlike VR, AR does not require a headset. So all you need to be able to use AR, and with students, for example, is a smartphone, a tablet, or there are AR glasses to access the AR experience. Key uses of AR in education include interactive textbooks and worksheets. Traditional books can become interactive with AR apps. An example is HP Reveal, which was formerly called Aurasma, and that's what we used in Uruguay for the Shakespeare Lives project. And this lets students scan a page, for example, scan a QR code to see 3D models, videos, or animations. So you can bring a textbook or a worksheet to life using AR. There are 3D models and visualizations. They can bring complex subjects to life by displaying 3D objects in the real world space. An example is anatomy. So there's something called Anatomy 4D, which allows you to see human organs in 3D. Jig Space is another one. You can explore interactive models of machines, science concepts, and history. There are, as I mentioned before, virtual field trips and history lessons. Now, you can explore ancient civilizations or historical events in augmented reality. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I have been to museums, for example, where you can scan a QR code next to an exhibit and listen to audio or watch video about that particular exhibit. So it's there as an additional thing you can do in the museum. There's also Google Arts and Culture, AR, and this brings artifacts and artworks into the classroom. For language learning, and I'll speak a bit more about this in a minute, AR can label real-world objects in a foreign language to reinforce vocabulary. So you can actually put labels on things in the classroom, for example, or provide some kind of interactive content in your space that students can interact with if they are using their smartphones. An example is Mondly AR. So you can have virtual tutors to converse with students in a particular language to have practice. Then the STEM and science experiments. AR allows students to perform experiments safely without lab equipment, a bit like VR, but in a different way. An example of this is MergeCube. It's a holographic object for interactive science lessons. When it comes to geometry and mathematics, you can visualize geometric shapes and equations in 3D spaces using AR. An example is GeoGebra AR, which turns math problems into interactive 3D objects. And why then can AR work in education? Well, like VR, it can boost engagement. Learning becomes more interactive and enjoyable. It can enhance understanding, particularly through 3D visualization, which can help students grasp abstract topics. It encourages active learning, like VR. Hands-on experiences can definitely improve retention. I spoke a little bit about that earlier. And it also has the potential to increase accessibility. So it can help students because of the multimodal and different ways of engaging with content. So final thoughts on AR, it can make learning more dynamic, interactive, and personalized. And whether exploring a virtual dinosaur or solving 3D math problems or dissecting a holographic frog, AR has the potential to revolutionize education across subjects. It's something I'm particularly interested in, and I've used AR and would love to use it more in the future. The downside, of course, is that it takes a lot of time to plan and actually produce this type of thing. So if you come across something that is ready-made in AR that you can implement in the classroom, this is great. But otherwise, actually putting it together yourself can be quite time-consuming. What about AR for language learning? Let's think a little bit more about this, or discuss a little bit more about this. It can make language learning more interactive, immersive, and engaging. This overlaying of digital text, images, and sounds onto the real world can help learners visualize vocabulary, practice conversations, and interact with their environment in a fun and meaningful way. Examples I mentioned before, Mondly AR. It's one of the most well-known AR language learning apps, and this can use AR chatbots to simulate real-life conversations, or ordering food and asking for directions. Is it AR? Is it VR? Well, I'll leave it for you to decide. Learners can interact with virtual objects, so you can see a 3D apple while learning the word for it in Spanish, for example. There's also Google Lens, and this instantly translates text in real-world settings, so restaurant menus and street signs. If you've never used this, it's definitely worth playing with, particularly if you're learning a foreign language. If you want it translated, dishes translated immediately. I'm not sure how good it is now. I haven't used it for a while, but it was pretty good when I last tried it out. And if you're in another country or in a restaurant with a particular type of food and the words are in another language, then it's interesting to get real-time translation from it. And it's a fun way of interacting with it as well. There are AR flashcards for vocabulary. So apps like Metaverse and Quiver use flashcards and allow you to see 3D objects and animations related to the world. There are storytelling apps. AR books and storytelling can provide interactive and immersive reading experiences in different languages. There are children's books, for example, that can be brought to life with AR, making language learning more engagement. And then apps like Google Arts and Culture AR allow learners to explore historical landmarks and cultural sites with translations and audio descriptions in the target language. So they're great for language learners preparing for travel, and it's a fun way to engage with the language. Why does AR work for language learners? Well, there's visual and context-based learning, real-world applications. It's engaging and interactive, as I mentioned previously with VR. And as with VR, it can reduce anxiety. So you can practice with AR chatbots before speaking with real people, or you can engage with the language and practice in the comfort of your own home. It is turning language learning, or has the ability to turn language learning into an interactive, visual, and immersive experience. So whether it's engaging with a textbook that produces something on your phone in 3D, or if it's translating a sign in real time, etc., it's quite interesting. That is AR. I want to finish by talking briefly about virtual worlds. I mentioned Second Life in my conversation with Mary because that's the virtual world that I used to use back before Facebook was popular at the beginning of this century. Now, that was some time ago, and I've spoken about my experience of virtual worlds on previous shows and had guests on to talk about it as well. For this show, though, I thought I would look at what's being done recently, and I was interested in understanding how virtual worlds are currently being used for education and for language learning and teaching. So I did some digging. First, though, for those of you who are not familiar with virtual worlds, a virtual world is a computer-generated environment where users interact in real time using digital avatars. These worlds can be fully immersive, i.e. virtual reality based, or more typically screen-based or non-VR, allowing users to communicate, explore, and engage in various activities. Examples of virtual worlds used in education and language learning are Second Life, which I mentioned before, it's still very popular, VR Chat, Minecraft Education, Mozilla Hubs, Engage XR. There are many more too, though I was surprised to see that Second Life is still such a very popular platform when it comes to education and language learning, but it seems it is. So how can virtual worlds be used in language learning? Well, language learning and teaching, that is. Virtual worlds offer authentic, immersive, and social ways to practice language skills in realistic environments. And you can use them in lots of different ways for language learning. For example, total language immersion. So learners can experience the target language in a fully interactive digital world. And instead of studying language in a more traditional way, students can order food in a virtual cafe, navigate a virtual city, or join a role-play conversation. So they work well to get language learners together in the environment that resembles, for example, the culture or a particular place where the culture of the target language, for example, or a particular place that you want to practice language for role-playing. An example is in Second Life, for example, students can visit a virtual Spanish-speaking town and practice shopping in a local market, etc. So very similar to some of the things that you can do in virtual reality, but it's a different kind of experience. You're moving around a kind of an avatar, a figure that you control with the mouse normally, and interacting with others who are doing the same. Then there's real-time communication and social interaction. So virtual worlds allow learners to speak, type, and interact with others in real time. So it's a bit like getting together in Zoom, but it's a 3D virtual world, and you're represented by a character rather than the avatar, rather than your actual photo of yourself normally. So this is especially useful for shy learners. Often they feel more comfortable speaking in a virtual space before trying in real life. An example is VR Chat, which has dedicated language learning communities where users can practice languages such as English, Spanish, Japanese, etc. Role-playing I mentioned, and task-based learning. Teachers can create role-playing scenarios such as hotel check-ins, interviews, or emergency situations, all sorts of things really that you can do in a normal classroom. That is more difficult to resemble or put together in a virtual chat room, for example, or virtual space such as Zoom. And learners can act out roles in a realistic virtual setting, which reinforces vocabulary and fluencies. So another example of that is Engage XR, which allows teachers to create custom interactive scenarios for real-world language use. Virtual classrooms and group projects is another interesting area. So educators can set up their own virtual classrooms where students can interact with multimedia, write on virtual whiteboards, or join small group discussions. Now, I was always not very keen about that aspect of virtual worlds, given the fact that you can recreate or visit places that have been created by others that resemble all sorts of real world scenarios, like, as I said before, like a particular Spanish town, that you can do that. Because you can do that, why would you want to get together in a classroom? Well, there are good reasons. I wasn't particularly keen on them, but of course, if you don't want to be distracted by what is going on around you otherwise, then that is a good reason. However, I still think the real affordances of virtual worlds come when you have interesting scenarios that resemble real life scenarios that you can't really very easily replicate in a normal classroom. Now, an example of virtual classrooms is Mozilla Hubs, which provides virtual meeting spaces where students and teachers can interact in this collaborative environment. And there are others, of course, as well. Then there are game-based learning and quests. Gamification elements, missions, treasure hunts, escape rooms can motivate learners to use the target language. And you can set up, for example, with Minecraft Education Edition, this allows students to complete language challenges by solving puzzles and interacting with in-game characters. Minecraft, after Second Life, became particularly popular with educators. There are language exchange and cultural immersion elements. You can meet native speakers and other speakers from different countries and practice conversational skills within this kind of scenario. Some platforms have dedicated spaces for language exchange where people can teach each other their languages. For example, Second Life's virtual language learning community, which has been going for years now, connects students with native speakers in a very engaging setting. What are the advantages of using virtual worlds for language learning? Well, you have the ability to involve students in authentic communication. The learners can practice real-world interactions. It's a safe practice environment, so students can make mistakes without fear of judgment. They can also be immersed in a very rich visual world without moving from their home. There's social learning aspects to it. It encourages collaboration with peers. Task-based learning is good to have there as well, which can engage learners through missions, storytelling, and interactive tasks that can actually be either completely divorced from the real world or very much replicating things that they would do in the real world as well. The experiences are very customizable. Teachers can design lessons, activities, and simulations which are tailored towards student needs. Now, there are challenges and limitations, of course. Technical issues, these are the big things, and this is probably the big reason why Second Life didn't take off as much as everybody thought it would back in the day when it was very popular. Some platforms require very high-speed internet and powerful devices, and if you don't have access to those devices or high-speed internet, then the experience can be quite limiting. You have something called lag, which is when you move the mouse, but your actual avatar doesn't move in the world. There's also quite a big learning curve for some of these virtual worlds, Second Life included. Students and teachers may need time to understand how to control their avatar and how to navigate. There's a lot of things you can do which does distract from the actual learning of a language, for example, if that's the reason why you're asking students to go to these worlds. That distraction potential is quite important. Students may focus on exploring the world rather than learning, which is the other reason why you might want to just take them to a virtual classroom at first. There is a lack of facial expressions, so on a lot of virtual platforms, they don't fully capture the nonverbal communication, which can be crucial for language learning, and which you do get if you're using actual video cameras to learn languages in, for example, a platform such as Zoom. Final thoughts. The future of virtual worlds in language learning. I think virtual worlds are still an exciting and interesting tool for language learning and teaching. I stopped really exploring them some time ago, but I think I find myself more and more attracted towards going in and having a look at them, because there was something about it that was very exciting and very interesting. And they do seem to be evolving. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they come back into the scenario as being an interesting area where students and teachers can meet, rather than something that is a little bit more minor or niche, which is the case at the moment. As technology improves, so as, for example, things get better, things get easier, that internet gets more reliable, and people have access to higher quality and more powerful machines, then potentially they could become more interesting, especially if AI tutors, for example, are introduced to these worlds, which I think this is happening as well. And the avatars that are being used are even more realistic than they are at the moment. So this will become, or could become, a more effective and attractive place for teaching and practicing languages in immersive ways. However, I think they'll never replace traditional teaching or other types of online teaching, but they could become an element and become an alternative to that. They could offer a powerful supplement, especially for conversational practice when students are not in the same physical area as others, cultural immersion, and interactive learning. With that, I think we have covered the main topics I wanted to talk about for today. So that brings us to the end of today's Sunday Lunch Show. Many thanks to today's guest, Maryam Mirshahnasab, and all of you who joined us live. Thanks too to all of those listening back to the recording. So that's it from me. There are Teachers Talk radio shows all week on all manner of interesting topics, so please listen in live or back to the recordings, and I hope you will join me next week at the same time. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.